The whole eclipse begins with a partial phase around 10:34 Eastern Time Sunday night. That's when Earth's shadow will begin to nip at the moon. Totality, when Earth's shadow completely blankets the moon, will last 62 minutes beginning at 11:41 Eastern Time Sunday night. Ron DeRockster reporting.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is to be in Washington today with visiting former North Korean spy chief Kim Yong-chol, with talks aimed at finalizing a second summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And again on Wall Street this morning, stocks are soaring. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial average up 211 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is an American Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of American Matters Media.
Hello and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Reno's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host is Leland Faegre. How are you doing?
Good morning, Brendan.
Yes, how was the trip down from Incline?
Well, it was mid-30s, and it was actually a lovely sunrise. Very nice, and warmer in the valley on the way up. So it was nice. Good morning, all things considered, because we had a lot of snow.
Yes, you did. Well, I'm glad to hear you made it today. And we have a lot to talk about, as usual, and a special guest appearance by someone that you all know later on in the show. But we are quite a bit happening, as usual, in this administration and in the under the curmudgeon, world changer, Donald Trump. You know, somebody just said recently that every once in a while, I think it was Kissinger, every once in a while history throws up a change artist, someone that bridges what the old consensus on how to look on things in the world and is forming a new consensus. And I think that is what we're seeing.
Well, that was a nice way for him to say it, because
yes,
he doesn't appreciate it. The funny thing happened on the way to their New World Order.
Yes.
Donald Trump.
Yeah. So, well, let's get into it now. A lot of people are probably going to start off a show like this with talking about the shutdown, and, well, we will have something to say about that later on in the show, but let's start off by talking about the new Attorney General nominee, Bill Barr, for that is facing a congressional inquiry. And with a few exceptions, most of it is about what he will do with the Mueller probe when it's finally published. Will he suppress it? Will he allow it out? Will he redact it? And all these other questions, because he is the ultimate authority on that probe.
He will be, yeah.
Yeah, he will be, yeah. So, but there's a few other things we can talk about that the Democrats and the Republicans are not really covering too much. And I've labeled it the good, the bad, and the ugly about Mr. Barr. And the good thing was, that I was impressed pretty much, you know, Senator Cory Booker, no doubt, is running for president. I don't think he's officially announced yet, but everyone assumes he will. And he's the Democrat from New Jersey, and he has worked with freedom-loving Republicans on some issues, especially the drug war. And he used his time to get into a long and, I thought, engaging discussion with the Attorney General about the drug war, because Barr was president, although during George W. Bush, I think it was 91 to 93, if I recall. Yeah. And he started some anti-drug programs and was responsible for the crack cocaine disparity in sentencing, and what is called the Weed and Seed program, which has a few good aspects perhaps, but overall led to the disparities in sentencing and the mass incarceration of black people. And Booker was really getting to him and saying, his questioning his insistence that overall the justice system is not racist. And it may not be overtly racist, but otherwise when you look at the statistics, black people generally speaking, get longer prison terms than white people for the same crimes. They don't get as much representation. They are
Not quality.
you're right, yeah. And at least Faegre said he was willing to continue the conversation with Booker, which was an encouraging sign.
Yeah, I like that exchange. There was rapport, which you wouldn't have expected. And I don't know how you feel about him, but he's difficult to like, put it that way.
Oh, Corey?
Yeah.
Well,
Insufferable human being, really, when you look at it.
I know. This was not exactly a Spartacus moment.
No.
Of course, if he ever would get elected, and I doubt he would because I think he's too young and immature at this point.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, but if he ever did, then we might have Rosario Dawson as First Lady. That might be interesting.
Oh, my God.
And then, so that was the good that I got out of what I've seen of the hearings. And the bad, of course, was his drug warrior beliefs. And that whole exchange, Booker did not really mention legalizing drugs. That seems to be a forbidden word in Capitol Hill.
And it was his time to do so.
Yes.
It was right there.
I know.
And yet he didn't reach for it.
No.
Disappointing.
Yes, that was. And of course, Barr is not going to bring that up because, as we all know, the way to stop the war on drugs is the interdiction and police and everything else. The weed and seed part was weeding out the drug dealers, which is locking them up and throwing away the key. And seed was the emphasis on more community policing, which sometimes is a good thing. I don't think it's a panacea, but community policing is a better idea than a lot of the police practices that we have today, and it's become more popular. It's a liberal idea, and he claims that he stopped other crimes such as car theft and breaking and entering and all these other crimes, which if it's true, and again, you have to depend on government statistics, but which are not always reliable to say the least. And then the ugly part, well, Barr was one of the instigators of the Patriot Act, who we are still seeing the effect of today. Even internationally, as we might get into later in the show. But also the Randy Weaver cover-up. A lot of people forget that, but when they asked him what pro bono or charitable work he did, he should have mentioned the extra mile he went for the perpetrators of the Randy Weaver incident up in Idaho.
Shocking thing.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely.
And it was another example of how dysfunctional the FBI often is in real life. I remember Christopher Wray, the current FBI director, during his confirmation hearings, he started off by saying, the FBI is in great shape. And we've seen how great a shape it's been.
They've been saying that since its inception.
Yes, and senators like Senator Kennedy will draw on about how the FBI is the greatest law enforcement agency in the world. Well, if they're the greatest law enforcement agency, then Inspector Clouseau is the greatest detective in the world. Because they continually...
We'll be back after these next. Hey everyone, Dave Escher here introducing you.
Find out what's hard now. Join Lady J for School Jones 200.
Join me Saturdays, 10 to noon, here on American Matters.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
So I think someone wants to join the conversation.
Yes. Hello, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I'm calling you all the way from the Pacific Northwest. How are you doing today?
Oh, we're doing fine. This is Jennifer Green.
I knew I recognized her.
Yes, it is. And well, welcome back, Jennifer. And we're very happy to have you. And I understand you have a little cold, but you know, Seattle is just so much damper than Reno.
Oh, yes, it is. I think pretty soon we're going to be growing wet feet. It's been raining a lot.
Oh,
We're going to have to vegetate, that's for sure.
You're kidding, right? Raining in Seattle?
Right, I know.
You must be kidding.
It's hot.
Yeah.
It is nice and green though, so I mean, those two go hand in hand. When it's green, you gotta have rain.
So is that where you got the frog in your throat? From all that moist,
No, it could be.
yeah. makes sense.
I hear you guys have been getting snow down there.
We got lots of it. I'm not sure if it met expectations or forecasted, but it was pretty close, pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, it seems like as usual the news is just crazy. All kinds of stuff going on.
Oh, you want to talk about the news?
Well,
You know, Jennifer, speaking of the weather, you know, and again, to remind our listeners, I work in the airline industry, and these storms continually, that we're seeing, continually cause delays and misconnections and things of that nature. And it really doesn't have to be that way. We've covered this before on the show, that airlines rely too much on ground-based radar stations and not enough on GPS. And this has been an ongoing problem. In December, when the House passed the budget, they, even though President Trump endorsed it, he apparently was too busy to really muscle it through.
Doing the infrastructure for...
Yeah, the infrastructure for airlines.
Yeah.
So that was kicked down the road again, probably for another 5 years. And with the shutdown, you know, it's interesting. You're very close to Canada now, but the Canadian, our American, let's start with the Americans. Our American flight air traffic controllers are suing the government because, oh, who's that in the background?
Someone else wants to get in on the conversation. He's going to have to place a call like everybody else.
The Canadian air traffic controllers were sending pizza to their American counterparts because they were, you know, they're working without pay now. And the interesting thing, though, is that the Canadian air traffic control system has been privatized, and they are no longer a government office. They are a corporation. They get some government regulation, of course, and standards, but they are operating on their own. And so they're immune from things, little things like a government shutdown. And they can also go out like any business and buy new technology without waiting for approval from Congress.
So they're licensed to that.
Yeah. NAV, I think it's CAN-NAV, I think they call it, or NAV-CAN. One of those two, you know, meaning Navigation Canada. But so that's one solution that we don't hear the talking heads talk about anymore when we're talking about the shutdown and the plight of the air traffic controllers.
well, that is absolutely true. And I think that this is a good opportunity to point stuff like that out. Because, you know, a lot of people are very much into media control paradigm, and they're either on Trump's side or they're on Pelosi's side. And I think that a lot of people now are getting really frustrated with this shutdown because it just looks like like an ego battle between the Republicans and Democrats. And but I know I'm here very liberal here, so I kind of have to sort of pose some arguments so that I'm not offending everybody around me, but trying to point out a few things.
Well, there you go.
One thing that I'd like to
Go on.
one thing that I'm trying to point out with this is that the government shutdown for me demonstrates why it's not necessarily a great idea to have the federal government in control of certain things.
Doing things.
And one of them is air traffic control. You know, I mean, that's really important. And I didn't even realize that they were all completely controlled by the federal government. But I guess that makes sense with the FAA. And it's kind of shocking and scary to think that these guys are very important in making sure that airplanes don't fly in the sky and, you know, land on the correct airstrip, that these guys are working without pay, and that we can't manage to come up with a better solution for this.
Yeah.
And another one is the TSA. I mean, I'm not a fan of the TSA certainly, but I am a fan of having good security on our airplanes. And again, I think this demonstrates that a private company would probably do the job better. I would like to see so many of these functions dialed back to state governments or to private corporations where if somebody screws up, they get fired. So I think that for the libertarians out there, this is a great opportunity to definitely, you know, to point out why we have the federal government in control of so many things.
Well, yes, exactly. And you know, the planes are not falling out of the sky. Let's make that clear. The air traffic control does a great job, and they have so many safety regulations and rules that there haven't. I think there's only one accident in the last couple of years, American, and then a few overseas, of course. But the fact is that it's very inefficient, and that's even President Obama said that if they upgraded the technology, would be to GPS navigation, for example, it would be 30% more efficient, and we'd have much fewer problems when you have these storms, because the airplanes using GPS would be able to quickly plot different routes away from storms, and so you would have much fewer delays and angry customers that I have to deal with.
Also, a purely selfish motive.
Oh yes, I'm totally selfish.
Now I see where you're
It
going.
is shocking though. I mean, to me it's shocking. I had no idea that we were still using such outdated technology. I mean, everybody pretty much uses GPS to drive their cars.
I don't.
It's shocking. I don't think most people realize that.
Well, some people are afraid that the Big Brother will be tracking them, or if they use GPS.
I use my phone very, very selectively.
Okay.
So, you know, the way I look at it, Big Brother is tracking them no matter what we do. I'm not sure that it's too easy to fall off that grid.
I think you're right.
They go to a lot of places.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of tracking people, and also to talk about the whole racial debate that we're plunging ourselves headlong into with the Democrats now being totally about intersectionality, the interesting thing came up recently where the Chinese ambassador to Canada, you remember that Canada has arrested the Mrs. Wang, I think her name is, with Wang phones. And, you know, Representative Barr is being censored for using the word white supremacy on the floor of the Senate, although he is saying...
King,
yeah, I'm sorry, King. For saying that using the word, even just the word white supremacy, he claimed he was trying to say that what is Western civilization is now being called white nationalism or white supremacy, and he was objecting to that. He said a lot of outrageous things, many of which I don't like, but the fact is that the real white supremacists, according to the Chinese ambassador to Canada, are the Five Eyes countries, which are America, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and I think South Africa is the fifth one, although I could be wrong. But the Five Eyes are the, again, coming from nominee Barr's Patriot Act, are the ones that are involved with worldwide surveillance, and that cell phone company, that Chinese cell phone company, has refused to turn over the encryption keys to the government, and he's basically saying that that's the reason why they're going after Huawei. It doesn't have anything to do with trade. It has to do with their refusing to comply with worldwide surveillance by the Five Eyes countries. And it's an interesting concept that, once again, Congress is embroiled in a tempest in a teapot over the word white supremacy, when the real white supremacists are the colonialists, the Western colonialists, and the millions of people that they have killed. In Africa alone, it's estimated that colonialism has killed at least 10 million people.
Yeah, terrific, still.
Yeah, and so it's again inverted priorities, I would think, from what we normally hear on the mainstream media.
And perhaps designed to distract.
Yes, it's very interesting how the debate is so limited here in this country compared to what other, and we have no real understanding of what other people think. The latest Putin watch. Just this week, Putin was cheered by 15,000 Russian teenagers who do charity work, and then he went to Serbia and was greeted by 120,000 pro-Russian Serbs who cheered him on. But of course, we all know that Putin is actually an ex-KGB thug, so there's no reason at all why people would like him around the world.
So why would they cheer him on if they knew?
Yes. Well, we're getting back to the end of this segment. Are you going to stay with us, Jennifer? Okay, we'll keep talking.
Did you lose her?
No. Are you still there?
I didn't hear it.
No, she's not there. All right. Okay, well, maybe she'll go back.
Yeah, we'll try to get her after the break. And we are up against the break, so stay with us.
Talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, I remember you in the old days, Park Lane Mall, a kiosk.
For the best of both worlds, comes to Candelarias today. Carry out and delivery is also available. Just call 449-5502 to place your order today.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Hello, and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. My name is Brendan Trainor. My co-host is Leland Faegre, and we have our guest, Jennifer Terhune-Green, back on the line with us. And before we go any further, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Reno Computer Services. They are Reno's premier IT provider with computer repair, malware remover, data recovery, and preventive services. You can reach them at www.renocomputerservices.com or give them a buzz on 775-737-4400. And I can tell you they are excellent, and they have helped me with my PC laptop in the past, and I recommend them. And we're back again with our show, and we have a couple of talking points we would probably like to get to, but these whole thing about the racial turnaround here and the racial perspective is and the hypocrisy that's in Congress, this is something that just came into my mind, but you know, there's this new Muslim representative, Somalian, the first Somalian Muslim elected to the Congress, who is under fire for her thoughts about what's going on in the Middle East. And one of the things she said was about the Gaza incidents that we've had experienced in the last year or two. And she tweeted out that Israel has hypnotized the world. And that's an interesting statement. I've never heard that word, hypnotized. But she was immediately censored by Republicans mainly, who said that she was giving the reinventing or reintroducing the whole trope that Israel rules the world, or the Jews rule the world, sort of like the protocols of the elders of Zion. But that's not really what she said. What she said was that Israel is pulling the wool over the eyes of most of the world.
That may not be what she said, but it's probably the back of mind what she meant.
Well,
she's virulently anti-Israel.
Yeah. Well, I think there's pretty good reason.
There are reasons to be virulently anti-many states. Not just Israel.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But you know, the whole Middle East conundrum is basically right now that Israel has been checkmated in Syria, and Israel has been put in a good light. For example, using commercial aircraft to hide their attacks on Syria, using a Russian turboprop plane to hide their attack on Russia.
Right, we discussed that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and Russia has brought in the S-300 missile defense system, and so Israel is kind of thwarted there, and they continually inflate the threat that Iran poses, and Iran is pictured as the #1 enemy in the world when it's actually just a medium-sized regional power. and has not nearly as much influence as America likes to claim it that it does.
Well, the Pan-Arabian military cooperation is just in its nascent stage, I think, will play a very big role going forward in the regional parts of this war against Iran. I mean, that's clearly how it's shaping up.
And more news is coming out about President Trump's withdrawal. Rand Paul emerged from a meeting with President Trump when the incident in Idlib where 4 Americans were killed. I understand 2 were soldiers, 1 was a Department of Defense official, and 1 was a contractor. Now, we didn't even know that we had contractors over there.
Yeah.
So that's been revealed.
It was very revealing, but wasn't that remarkable for Rand Paul to come out in the way that he did in support of the president?
Yes.
I hope libertarians are taking notice.
Yes, I know. And unfortunately, a lot of the Libertarian Party people that we know love to criticize Rand Paul because, according to them, he's not pure enough for their taste. But he is, despite his problems, and he does have some problems and blind spots like most politicians, he is standing up for truth to power more often than not. And so, yeah, definitely supporting the president. And the first time after the phone call with Erdogan, when he first decided to pull out, news stories are surfacing now that he, Bolton and his rotundity, Secretary of State Pompeo, actually argued his rotundity. Actually argued with him for 3 days with Trump, and Trump stood his ground finally. And somebody said, so he's getting some political Viagra.
The humor is from Brendan this morning.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
yeah. So I don't know. Things are changing, but again, it's still too early to tell. But the Chinese ambassador putting the onus of white supremacy on the European and American establishment was extremely interesting to me, at least, because there is too much being said about race, and maybe if we started thinking about our own legacy and our own colonialism, and understand that China might be communist, and so that's negative in a lot of ways, but they have a right to do what they're trying to do. They have a 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, I don't know how long it is, culture over there, and they have to, and every culture is really a survival mechanism, an evolutionary survival mechanism, including Jewish culture, by the way. That's how different cultures cope with the world and try to survive. And it's an interesting turn of events, and I don't know if we can change that around, because a lot of people, freedom people, are basically cosmopolitan, and they haven't been willing to get involved in ethnic and racial discussions. But I think it's about time that we started to, because cosmopolitanism is one good feature, but there's also the fact that the populist uprising around the world is based on ethnicity to a large part and nationalism.
It's interesting that you use the term cosmopolitanism, because that was what the framers used to describe global. I think we have someone on the line.
Yeah.
We haven't called. They used that term as we would use the term globalist today.
Yes, and to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, these terms are rather vague, all of these terms, globalism, cosmopolitanism, what does it really mean in the nitty-gritty? And, well, we're seeing something happening in France, you know, the Gilets jaunes are in, what, their 10th week now, the demonstration?
They were active last weekend.
Yes.
But before we move on, though, I wanted to just take issue with the description of the Chinese as communists. Really, they're fascists.
Well, you could say that.
Because they've embraced corporatism.
Yeah, they're mercantilists.
Yeah, so the term no longer applies in my view. I mean, they came from a communist history, but they are no longer in a communist mold, as we typically describe them, because they've embraced corporatism.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. I mean, they still call themselves communists.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Lots of people do. But let's be honest. I mean,
yeah, when you have
they have a stock market.
They have a stock market. Ludwig von Mises said a country's freedom could be measured by whether it has a stock market or not. and they have a lot of wealthy women and small businesses have a good deal of freedom. And, you know, they also have property rights. You know, when our president is a lover of eminent domain, but I've seen pictures in China where people refuse to, Chinese people refuse to give up their property. And one time I saw a picture where they built a road right around the house. In other words, one lane on one side of the house, another lane on the other side of the house, because the owner refused to move.
You know, like they do in the casino corridor here in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
circle back to something that you said earlier, Brian, if I could.
Sure.
I think that the Muslim conflict it's interesting to me, the whole Israel discussion, because I feel like a discussion of Israel and how much of a sway that they do have over our politics is a discussion that we should have. And to me, it's unfortunate that anybody who really tries to have that discussion is labeled anti-Semitic.
oh yeah.
And I think not, as Leland pointed out, it's not just Israel. There's other foreign entities that have much too much sway in our Congress. You know, we saw that with Saudi Arabia recently buying off conflicts, basically. And I think that when these discussions come up, you know, we shouldn't just sort of say things about Israel. If I was the Congresswoman, I would have had some hard numbers to back up what I was saying about Israel and money that's exchanged and stuff like that before you go dive into that discussion.
Well,
I feel like it is one we should have, but you know, you gotta back it up with the truth.
Yeah, I think you may be asking too much from her, but you're right. They should be able to back up their statements, and I don't think she did very well. At least she didn't see it.
Well, it was only a tweet.
But she's been on.
Yeah.
She's been on, as Rush Limbaugh would describe, PMS, NBC, and a lot of the left-wing cable shows. So,
okay.
So she's been out there on her own behalf and on her own agenda.
Well,
absolutely.
There's a lot of Somalis in Minnesota, and that's where a lot of the Somali refugees went to. And the story of what we've been doing in Somalia, I know quite a bit about it, and it's really a shame. The whole Somali pirate thing and everything else was a product of our interference in their ancient system of government that they tried to reestablish in '91 when they overthrew the formerly Marxist and then pro-Western dictator Sid Barre. And it's really a sad story, but we'll have, if we get to it, it'll be after the break.
Have you a friend or family member?
Business Connections with Anita connects businesses with new potential customers every Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on America Matters.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
Hello and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm Brendan Trainor, your host, along with Leland Leland Faegre and Jennifer Terhune Green.
We knew what you meant.
Yes, I know. You know, keep in mind this is not Rush Limbaugh. We don't have we almost have Mr. Snerdley in the booth, but we don't have a teleprompter that we can look at. So sometimes we mess up with that occasionally. But well, going back perhaps to the whole issue with the race and there's an interesting story that has come out recently in publications like Mother Jones and other left-leaning publications, but also some other foreign publications have caught up on it, and that's the sanctions on Iran are going to be ramped up again, and it's an interesting story about a little seed that we all know about, and most of us have probably eaten, called the pistachio. And most people don't know, but one little pistachio seed was brought over from Iran at the turn of the 20th century and planted in California.